Welcome everybody to Yamhill County Truth Seeker Conversations in the Spirit of Truth. And we have back with us the one and only Marc Thielman, father, husband, former gubernatorial candidate, former public school administrator, now jack of all trades, doing all kinds of amazing things, and still keeping involved in politics and helping Oregon stay on track if at all possible. Welcome back, Marc, and thank you.
Well, it's good to be back. Thanks for having me.
I'm going to start with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, I ask that you come to between the two of us in our conversation with your Holy Spirit presence and your power and your grace. Open all of our eyes to what is true and what is deception, and help us to, with your power and guidance, illuminate truth. In Jesus' name, amen.
Yeah.
Okay, so last time we talked about your initial Oregon election integrity lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
And for the sake of those who don't know or don't have the background, when did you file that, and what were your main reasons for suing the Secretary of State?
So we filed way back in September. Late August is when we kind of put the case together, and we filed in September. And just to review for everyone that two things happened. One is I started an organization called Battleground Oregon. And the name obviously befits battling. And Battleground Oregon is a political action committee, and it's designed to do some focused kind of things. One is election integrity. Two is to do things that promote Christians participating and people of faith, not just Christians, but people of faith voting, because they tend to vote in lower percentages. And then naturally, too, trying to raise resources and provide organization like a coordinating agency, so that we can take information and get it coordinated so that we can spearhead with it. Which is why Battleground has been kind of a landing spot for all kinds of people working on election integrity all over Oregon. So obviously I was getting lots of feedback from people doing pro se cases. That's where they sue on their own behalf without an attorney. The courts tend to be very hostile to that. Obviously we know that with Donald Trump and many of the state cases that the judges and courts were very hostile to election integrity. We saw it recently with Kari Lake. So I was paying attention to all that, and what I kind of decided was, we have to take a different approach rather than trying to prove fraud, because that's a huge high bar. And it's very difficult to prove fraud in Oregon because the government prevents you from getting the data that you can get in any other state, but you can't get it here. Matter of fact, they just passed a law that said you can't. It's now illegal to look at the cast vote records, which is insane. Even San Francisco releases their cast vote records, and that's in a liberal stronghold, if you will. So,
wow.
So there's there's a lot of government and court hostility here in Oregon. So what I did is I came up with a concept that said, look, I've worked in government, I've done policy for 10 years as a school superintendent. Done legislative work. I've worked on PERS reform and business policy stuff. And so I had all this experience on how broken and vile our government is and how inefficiently it works. And I thought, it's really about confidence that the government's behavior and the way it's treating people who are concerned about election integrity is part of the problem. In other words, the government is manufacturing the lack of confidence that a huge percentage and growing percentage of Oregonians have in their own elections with the mail-in ballots and all that. So with Battleground set up, we went ahead and filed a suit. I found some plaintiffs. We filed in 12 counties because it was a money-saving deal to do that. And the goal was that we would write a very generalized case, not very specific, not a lot of hard evidence and facts. We would use the term fraud intermittently, but more so introduce concepts called confidence. In other words, these actions by the government harm the confidence of people. And it was all designed around Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas, 1954, which is the landmark desegregation case that desegregated black and white schools. And obviously, our current president was not a fan of that process. As you know, he didn't want his kids going to school in a racial jungle. So when you're dealing with the extreme left and knowing that they imbue that landmark case as their own, they see it as something that Democrats did, even though Democrats were the ones opposing it in court. Because they see that, and I figured they'd be territorial. They're going to be arrogant. So what we did is we left Brown versus Board of Education out of the first round. And sure enough, it worked like clockwork. The government was arrogant. They came out and filed a 40 some odd page motion to dismiss. And when they did that, they exposed their entire playbook. So now we have.
When you say the government, who exactly did that? Was it the Secretary of State's office, the Attorney General?
Secretary of State's office, and under counsel from the Attorney General. So,
okay.
And what's so powerful about that? So we're suing the Secretary of State and the 12 counties. All 12 counties participated in a motion to dismiss. Not one county would answer the suit. But what's so beautiful about it is documenting the way the government lied to the counties. Like, you could be held personally liable and you need to do this, or we're not going to represent you, or you're going to have to pay out of pocket. None of that's true. But it's amazing what a government will do to protect itself. So that was a good kerfuffle. It's the second it looked like we were going to have to answer on the motion to dismiss, we did something even more crazy. And that is we completely refiled and amended the case. And that was part of the plan. So when we rewrote the entire case, there were things we left out based on feedback we've gotten, things that we added in based on the playbook that the government showed us. And then we hit them with Brown versus Board of Education, which is the sense of confidence. And what is hilarious about it, in my opinion, is when they went to refile their motion to dismiss, because we also then extended the suit to all 36 counties in Oregon. And it's incredible, Todd, how many counties, contacted me personally and said, well, what will it take for you to drop this case? And I said, well, you can stop using the mail-in balloting system that we're using right now. Well, we can't afford. I mean, it was all the normal platitudes, right? But the comedy of it is several other counties were like, well, you have no grounds to sue us because we haven't done anything wrong. We're just following the law. Well, here's what you're doing wrong is you are imposing mail-in balloting. You're accepting ballots long after the election, up to 7 days, up to 14 in some counties. You've created tremendous amounts of confusion, and then you've been dishonest with people, saying that we couldn't afford to do analog elections, which, paper ballots and vote one person, one vote. It's all a bunch of it's
baloney.
Yeah, it's baloney. I forgot. It's a family show, so
right.
It's a bunch of baloney. So the best part about it is when we filed, we then added all kinds of information, real details, and you can read the case. It's on the website Battleground Oregon, so it's battlegroundoregon.org. Again, battlegroundoregon.org. The case is up on the website.
I noticed. I looked at that, and I saw January 27th of 2023 at the top of the case. So that's a wholly reworked.
Yeah, that's the reworked version. Yeah,
and it's interesting that you have the ability to change everything you're doing and continue, or is it like starting over?
Well, it's the courts generally allow you one round of amendment, so they don't. You have to ask for a second round of amendment. They usually don't grant that. But, people are aware. The courts are comfortable with that. They know that things change as people start to put stuff out there. So the best part about it is that when you amend it, you really want to amend it. And this is a mistake a lot of pro se people make. They do little tweaks or they try to amend it more than once. And the courts are very hostile to that. So it was nearly a complete gut and stuff from the first round to the second round, and that forced them to have to tweak their motion to dismiss. And what was really interesting is and I can boil the premise down, their whole argument for why the case should be dismissed really focuses on the following. One, they're saying that the plaintiffs don't have standing because even if all of the things that are alleged are true, even if there's no security and transparency in the election, they're not harmed any more than any other voter. So even if the things are fraudulent and corrupt, the plaintiffs aren't harmed any more than any other voter. That's one of their arguments, which they really need to listen to what they just said. So it's the other argument that they're positing about why the case should be dismissed is they're saying that psychological harm to confidence is not substantial. But of course, they undo the entire Brown versus Board of Education case, which the justice said that the very existence of two separate systems, even of equal quality, creates a psychological disparity from which white children and black children may never recover.
Wow.
See? So that was a little bit of a trap for them. So they added a third argument, and that was basically saying that even if they basically said that because the plaintiffs represent thousands of people who think the way they do, and it's a growing number of people. So what they're saying is they recognize that a growing number or percentage of Oregonians think that there's some issues with our elections. They actually say this, and then this is their argument to dismiss the case, which is bizarre. Ready? Again, because they're just one of hundreds of thousands of people. So here's the fundamental question that the state completely ignored. The case is this. The case says that the conduct of this government, the way it's conducting its elections, the way it allows college students to receive 2 votes at PSU and OSU, they get 2 ballots. The fact that those ballots are then collected by the recycling programs, and then they're hauled off to the SEIU, who then emails its employees and says, we need help with filling out ballots, who then drop those ballots off at county offices, which are also unionized. We have real.
And is that legal? Is that the Oregon legal ballot harvesting going on right before our very eyes?
Yes.
Or do you have evidence of that?
Ballot harvesting is one thing. Taking blank ballots and filling them out that's called fraud. And we are prepared to prove in court that that's going on. And we were able now to verify it goes on in OSU and PSU. We started with University of Oregon. So all of these bits of evidence, my favorite too, is the fact that Multnomah County from 2016 to 2021 has removed 5 people from its voter rolls.
Wow.
Yet
That's insane.
The federal FEC, the Federal Election Commission, requires states to update their voter rolls regularly. So we have this in evidence, right? So the best part about it is yet we had a Secretary of State who has now been found to be corrupt, Shemia Faye, which is just a wonderful windfall for our case, because
a testimony in and of itself.
Yes, and to think that corruption just stops with her is baffling. That's how the media is trying to swing it or spin it, right? Okay, she's gone. Now we have integrity. Right now we have voter integrity. Yet the governor herself, Tina Kotek, in a recent OPB article about a month ago, was under pressure to select and appoint a new Secretary of State who would agree, like Kate Brown required for Dennis Richardson's replacement, not to run again. And Kotek won't do that. And she said, the reason I can't do that is I can't limit myself, because you need to understand this is a scandal. And it's cast a shadow over the whole agency, and it's greatly harmed public confidence in the Secretary of State's office.
Yeah.
So, Todd, we call that in court, thank you. Because the highest officer, elected official in the state of Oregon, which is the governor, has just conceded to our entire election integrity case.
If everything's equal and fair, yes. But we know that whoever's in there listening, they can twist things. We just have to have.
Well, sure. They can twist things. Yeah, I agree. But the thing is, and they will twist it, but it's in her own words. It'll now be part of the court record. So usually in these situations, most of the Oregon cases either get dismissed outright, or they don't get oral arguments. In other words, the judge just looks at the written arguments and then rules. However, we have been blessed because, and maybe it was a result of the scandal in the Secretary of State's office, because it was well timed with our request, but we requested an oral argument, talk about why the case be dismissed and why we have standing, and that has been granted. So for your listeners, June 26th at 3 p.m. in the Multnomah Courthouse in Portland, our case will be heard before a federal judge, and it is open to the public. So my goal is to pack the courthouse with as many patriots and election integrity, minded people as possible. Let's show by force. Now, we're also being told, and I'm waiting for final verification, but we do have one round of emails saying that the judge understands that a lot of people may want to be there, and that she would be open to having it on a Zoom link. So there may be an opportunity for people to watch all over the state, or all over
A lot safer, because I'm telling you that people have been intimidated by the Nazi tactics of January 6th and the infiltration, and
Yep.
and who's to say that Antifa, which has a home base in Portland, wouldn't just pretend like they're supporters of
Yep.
Marc Thielman's case and cause all kinds of heck and arrest everybody. So I hope they will make a Zoom link.
Yeah, so we'll do our best for that. But my favorite would be if they were outside with all their little, placards and little shields and stuff, because that would tell us that we have an election integrity problem in this state. We have a division and a culture problem in this state. We have a criminal and homelessness problem in this state. We have a drug problem in this state.
I think most people know it. Mm-hmm. It's just those in charge don't want to make that connection. They deny it because they've got power. That's my 2 cents.
Well, I'll make a prediction, because there's, with the senators that walked out here in Oregon, just to let everybody know, there were enough Republican senators that walked out to deny quorum. So the legislature has been shut down for quite some time. I know they're in negotiations. I think they were in yesterday and today. The Democrats are trying to, get the Republicans to show up so they can pass the budget. My recommendation is the Republicans don't show up. They shut the whole session down. Okay. The Democrats, they won't rule in a bipartisan way. They won't bring Republicans into on key committees. They don't listen to Republican people or patriot people or moms and dads of all political backgrounds who went in and said, I think that I should have parental rights, and if my daughter or son are going to mutilate their genitalia, I would like to have a say in that. They're trying to pass a bill, HB 2002, that says parents will not have a say in that, and that schools and Oregon Health Plan and government agencies and OHP, right? All of those agencies will have to participate on the side of the 9-year-old who wants to get an abortion or mutilate their genitalia in opposition to the parent. This is the kind of environment that the senators walked out of, and thank God they did. Well, so I believe in parents.
It's the only way. And it's not without precedent. So, people should know that these things have happened before. And if it's an effective means of getting heard or justice, then do it.
What's amazing is that, these extreme leftists, progressives, people like Tina Kotek, and, what's her name? Rep Fahey, and, Dan Wagner, and, all of these high profile leftist extremists, they always support the right of people who, when they feel like they aren't being treated fairly by their employer, to strike. You ever notice that? They're always big supporters of that. Our senators, our Republican senators, are doing the same thing. They did not feel like they were being allowed to participate. They did not. All 76 of their priority bills were denied, either not given hearings at all or completely just ignored. And therefore, they have now concluded that they and their constituents, a lot of rural as well, people, weren't being represented. So you know what they did, Todd? They chose to exercise their right to strike. But suddenly it's not okay.
Well, that's the other thing. It's a two-tiered justice system. And when you were talking about Brown versus Board of Education, it sort of had the same feeling, because I didn't remember what it was about, to the two-tiered justice system that we have nationwide. And it's being seen everywhere. You can get away with this. We can get away with this. You can't get away with this, but we're going to get away with this. And that's got to come to an end.
Well, understand the psychology behind it. Ready? We're the good people because we know we're the good people. So anything we do is infallible. So if you show up, let's say we're school board members in Eugene, because the whole board just got kicked out, right?
Well, did they get kicked out?
Yeah. And when
Eugene?
Yeah, and they were replaced by, probably, the same ideology. One
Okay.
moderate person, thank God. But when people came and said, "Hey, this is bigoted and racist, and this is anti-LGBTQ," and then they actually filed the complaints against actual board members, the board members met and they were just beside themselves. We're not bigots and racists. That's everyone else.
Hmm.
See, so they didn't address the complaints. Well, you know what that gets you. They declared themselves innocent. This is what our government does. You can file all the complaints you want against anyone, and they'll just declare your complaint unfounded because they disagree. Okay, that's the two-tier justice system. So
the only place we get justice is the Supreme Court, and even then, it's tentative.
it is tentative, but at least it still exists, and that's
Mm-hmm.
the beauty of our founding fathers. That
Amen.
there's still that check and balance there. So
For sure.
for me and for the listeners out there, for people viewing your awesome podcast, what I want them to understand is that election integrity is absolutely synonymous with things like parents' rights, with our individual liberty and freedom. That in order for us to preserve our democracy, our republic, okay, we absolutely have to have confidence in our votes and our elections. If we do not, if we lose that confidence, and it's being lost rather rapidly, especially with the scandals coming out of the Secretary of State's office. I mean, the woman took $10,000 in cash.
A month,
A
right?
month in cash. Drug money, marijuana money, cash. I mean,
And didn't think that was a problem.
no, I mean, what could go wrong? She's just trying to help her family.
Well, can I just divert quickly about election integrity? And this is actually an old statistic from Rasmussen. Back in December of 21, the polling was 59% of Americans, 1,000 U.S. likely voters, said it was at least somewhat likely that cheating affected the 2020 election.
Yep.
That's 59%, and that includes a lot of moderates. So I'm sure it's way higher now. I don't have the stats in front of me, but there's a lack of confidence everywhere.
Well, the thing is, they absolutely cheat. My favorite is the video that Battleground, working with some awesome people in Lane County, we kind of said, well, let's get some cameras outside the building because you can see through the windows at night, right? And man, the stuff that came out on that video would really bring the hair on the back of your neck stand up. I mean, we're telling.
Okay, so I looked at your website today, and I didn't see that. It didn't jump out at me. What is that video called? Is it still there?
The video's not on the website because this is evidence in the case. So we have the video.
Okay.
But you're gonna love this. So a person with a backpack, bulky backpack, comes in. Two people get up with him. They walk back to the tabulation area. They come back out with the backpack's now empty, and everyone's holding on to these things that are ballots. And then they go to the little booths where you could do in-person voting on election day, and they start filling these out and walking back and forth to each other and looking at them. But it gets better.
Wow.
So then when I saw this video, I went, oh, this is one of the ways that they're cheating. So here's the thing. So I called the Lane County election clerk the next day, or not the next day, but a few days later. And I said, hey, I'm following up, apparently, according to the vote tracker, you guys have received my vote, but how do I know you counted it? And guess what? They can't tell me that my vote ever was counted. They have no chain of custody for once it goes out of the envelope. And he's like, well, why would you even ask? Because that's our process. It goes out of the envelope and it gets processed. I said, well, how do I know that there's not a bad actor printing off ballots from your printer that you say you can do? Because they can print off ballots at will. Right. And then swapping my conservative vote for one that's, a little bit more formidable to the woke left. And he couldn't answer that. It gets better. I
suppose they would say it's signature verification, right?
Well, again, even then, signature verification is not overly accurate. It's horrible.
No, it's very subjective.
Yes, but it gets worse. So I said, hey, I'm sure you have a chain of custody on every ballot you print, because you wouldn't want to just have, an open door to the printer and anybody can print off ballots at any time. And so he called me back a couple hours later because he wanted to get good information for me. And guess what? They have a little, spiral notebook where they're supposed to log when they print a ballot and what it's for, but it's not required. So
the honesty system.
Well, any corrupt county worker could go in on a weekend and print off 1,000 ballots and swap out votes they don't like on the tabulation line.
Well, God help us, and I pray that several times a day, because everywhere I turn, we need His help.
We
This
do.
is bad.
Well, this is why I'm a believer, as you know, and I feel compelled to bring these things to people's attention. And again, I'm not alleging fraud. What am I saying? I'm saying that the very fact that they don't have a chain of custody on the ballots they're printing harms public confidence.
There you go. Okay.
Okay. So here's the fundamental question.
Yep.
And we kind of
Okay.
wrap up with this. The whole purpose of this court case is designed to ask the big questions that were asked with Brown versus Board of Education. Is separate but equal truly equal? That was the question that case was designed to solve. Well, here's the new question. Whose job is it to maintain the public's confidence? Is it the public's or watchdogs within the public? Or is it the government's job itself? That's what this case is bringing before the federal court, which is why it's Supreme Court worthy. That's the whole point of doing this. So even if we lose, even if they throw it out, we'll appeal, and we'll keep appealing until we get to the U.S. Supreme Court, because that is a fundamental question that has to be answered if we're going to save our democracy. Now,
well, how do you want it to be answered?
Well, I think it's obvious. I think Captain Obvious himself can answer that. If it's the public's job to maintain their own confidence in their own government, regardless of the government's behavior, that doesn't make sense. That the only agents that are required and ought to be responsible for public confidence is the government agents themselves. So it would be the Secretary of State, the governor, the elected officials, the appointed bureaucrats, the hired bureaucrats. The whole system itself has a responsibility to maintain confidence. And when you send out millions of ballots without any security, and you're not updating the voter rolls, and you even admit you're not updating the voter rolls, and you're not following federal law, these things pile up and they add up to be damaging to people's confidence. So that's the whole gist of the case.
Okay. I guess when you mentioned that, the first thing that came to my mind about the public being responsible for confidence, I feel like there'd be more confidence if we went back to precinct votes, and precinct people who live in that neighborhood are responsible for not only checking people's ID, and you can only show up to vote, and they watch it go in, and it's one vote per person, period. That to me was my only picture in my mind of the public.
No, but you bring up I didn't mean to cut you off. You bring up an awesome point. Can I segue on that? The point you're bringing up is amazing. Look what you're saying. There are people out there who have no confidence in a mail-in vote.
Yeah.
But they have confidence if they're able to go in person and cast their vote. Am I right?
Yeah.
The government should be allowing that, because by doing so, you're increasing confidence across the spectrum of voters. See?
You'd think.
You would. To me, it's pretty basic. It's pretty simple stuff. They do it in other states. They do it in Georgia. You can vote in person. Sure. You can vote by absentee. Yep. They do it in Florida. So we're not even saying throw out mail-in balloting per se. What we're saying is throw out this mail-in balloting system that we're using in Oregon, and we will replace it with something that has a chain of custody and more secure, and allows for in-person voting, just like you said. I mean, great point you brought up.
Progress. Do you still have need of people to use the public records template? And is that still valid in this case, or are we past that?
Well, it's been valid and people can still use it. Any piece of evidence that continues to be generated can still be used in oral argument and in trial. So
you're talking about that between now and the 26th, or even after?
Yeah, and what's even after. So what's powerful about it?
So can you explain what it is? Because I'm not sure if everybody really knows. It's one of the things on your website.
Yeah, so if people, yeah, great. If people want to do a public records request, there's the template, and they can make what's called a declaration. There's a declaration template. So let's say you volunteered and you worked in the most recent election, and you saw something that disturbed you. You can write what you saw in that declaration. It's like a legal affidavit. You then are a party to the class action lawsuit, which is what this is. I should have made that clear. And there's no liability for you. You're just a person saying, like a witness, hey, here's what I saw. So the whole issue of the corruption in University of Oregon and the collecting of those ballots, all that came from we the people. And this is what makes it different than like Carrie Lake's case or Donald Trump's case or the Texas case. So all those cases were written. This is the other thing I noticed. They're all written by attorneys. The problem with attorneys, and there, there's a myriad of problems, I suppose. Attorneys are very busy. In order to make a living, they got to represent a lot of people and they got to do a lot of stuff. So they miss things. But Battleground is a coordinating agency. So I made sure the attorney, Stephen Jonkus, that represents Battleground, got all the information. But I didn't wait for him to go through it. I went through it. And then I organized it for him. And then we just took all of these things written by regular people and literally just pasted them into the case and wrote transitions. This is the only election integrity case in America written by we the people, not by attorneys. It's a powerful point. Very powerful.
That's intense. That's intense. So you also have a declaration template for
and people also go to Joncus.net. It's JONCUS.net. You can get the declaration usually because there's always updates to it right from Stephen Jonkus's website. And I'll check to make sure the one on the link is still updated. But
and is that different from what you just described with the public records request? That is different, right?
It is different, but the two go hand in hand. So if there's you want to know, you public records request it. When the county doesn't give it to you or they charge you $8,000, you've just created it. Now, how does that help with confidence? So I want to be assured in the election. I'd like to, maybe see a copy of my own ballot, and I'd like to know if my ballot was correlated back to my envelope, and I'd like to see a chain of custody that verifies that, so I can feel confident that my ballot was counted. Can you please produce those records? And then the county will say, well, we have some of those, but we're not going to give them to you. So that obviously is good for confidence, right?
Zero.
Yeah, no confidence. How's that true?
No confidence. I vote no confidence.
Yeah, but hey, we have the most transparent, we have the highest participation rate of any state election in the United States, and everything is secure, and we start with updated lists. All of that was published to the public by the Secretary of State, who is now disgraced.
Well, now I will say, I think they did, at least last I talked, in Yamhill County, they do a really good job of keeping the voter rolls clean, and they're constantly reaching out to find out people who have deceased, people who've moved, and updating. So, but it's the big counties that are the biggest problem.
Yeah, and they're the ones that have the bulk of the votes. See, and that's the thing. Yamhill's a great county, and I will agree with you. Your county clerk does a good job and cares about voter or election integrity. Yamhill actually dialogued with myself. Because, they kind of, empathize a little bit. Not that everybody in the county agreed, but they understood the issue. Not so in the big counties. So Marion, Multnomah, Washington, those in particular are egregious. Lane County is the other one. Oh my gosh, horrible. And and when you look at the population that those counties represent, you can see why those were the ones they first corrupted.
That's why people say that we're a red state except for two counties.
Yeah, literally.
And whatever they do there that may reduce our confidence.
Yep.
I love the idea. I love the concept of your case. It's so unique, and I'm glad I got to hear you explain it. Is there anything people can do to follow you? Should they just check into your website?
Well, yeah, follow battlegroundoregon.org. And then also, obviously, this has been all funded by We the People. Lots of small donations. So if people want to, if you don't want to have your name out there, you don't want to be a party to the lawsuit, but you want to throw $25 or $50, it makes a huge difference. I was told by so many people not to pick up this mantle. And literally by people who are my friends, saying this will hurt your political career. And they were all into the don't talk about election fraud kind of folks. None of them, and I'm talking about real establishment Republicans here, not one of them is against me now. They're all behind this case. They all they saw it happen just as I explained it when I pitched it to funders and things. And I've had enough folks help funding this that we've been able to get this all the way to this oral argument. We've been able to pay the bills. We've been able to hire investigators when we need, and then the goal is that we'll be able to do a bang-up job with discovery investigators when we go to trial. So every little dollar counts, even $5 counts. And so I appreciate
So are you
that.
saying that if somebody gives via a certain avenue, it doesn't become public
Well,
record
obviously,
because it's not for a candidacy, right?
well,
Is that why?
it goes on the public registry if you make a donation to Battleground. So, but it's, you give
Okay.
$50, it's a political donation, but it doesn't have the connotations of if you give to Donald Trump. You see what I'm saying? Election integrity, in my opinion, is something every Oregonian should be concerned about.
It's true.
And the only
It's a
people,
common theme.
the only people we should suspect or be concerned about are the ones that don't think it's an issue or don't think it's important that our elections are integrous, because I think those are the ones we need to worry about. And the vast majority of Oregonians, like you said, 59% plus, it was even higher than that. It was over 70% said, yeah, there's some shenanigans with our elections here in Oregon. Yeah. So that's my whole point. So anything people can do, we appreciate it. Just sending a kind email and getting out there and saying keep going makes a big difference for me and the people that help me.
Well, Mark, God bless and protect you and all of your team and everybody who's watching. Please help out. Jump in, join in on that. Unfortunately, I will not be where I can watch that unfold at the federal court. I guess that's next week, right?
Yeah.
I won't be able to see it, but I'll definitely be in prayer, and I hope others are. And
yeah,
it's
2 weeks, by the way, on the 26th.
Oh, 2 weeks.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Yes, I will be back.
Right.
Sorry, I was closing the month out way too soon.
It's okay, Todd. We'll save you a seat, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, God bless you.
Yeah. God bless you.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
All right. You take care. Bye, everyone.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of these United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And to my country I make my pledge to always love, protect, and defend her. And we the people across this land, one nation